Hello, we're going to look at our second solid today. We're going to look at finding the volume of cones. So in our previous lesson, we looked at finding the volume of cylinders. So to remind ourselves, a cylinder has a circular base, two circular bases, has a height, and usually we're looking for a radius. If we don't have the radius, we need to find the radius by dividing the diameter by 2. Today we're going to look at our cone. So today we're talking about cones. Now, cones are unique in that they are formed on the inside of a cylinder. So if we kind of think about that cylinder having a cone inside of it. So in vice versa, if we have a cone, we could think of a cylinder that would surround it. Um, it's interesting, and if you want, I'll post a video to show this. But the volume of this cone, so what I mean by that is the space it occupies. If I could fill a cone with water, I could pour it 3 times into this cylinder. So imagine if I took a cone and I filled it with water, I could pour it into its cylinder. Remember, that cylinder though has to have the same base and height. I could do that 3 times. So that's what's going to help us with our formula for volume of a cone. So let's go ahead and jump right into some examples of this. So the volume of a cone has its own formula. Because it can pour 3 times into that cylinder, we can take our cylinder formula, which we know is pi r squared h. We can take that volume of that cylinder and divide it by 3. So that's the big difference here from going from a cylinder to a cone, is that we're dividing by 3 to get our final answer. And that's because the volume of a cone is a third of its cylinder. What I mean by that is, if we think about it conceptually, here's my cone volume, and here's my cylinder volume. We know the cylinder volume, remember we're talking about the cylinder that cone would perfectly fit in, is 3 times. So if we said that the cone volume was 20 centimeters cubed, the volume of the cylinder would be 60 centimeters cubed. Because it's the cylinder is 3 times bigger, the cone is 3 times smaller. So if I said the cylinder was 300 cubic centimeters, that means the cone must be a third of that, or divide this by 3. That cone would be 100 centimeters cubed. So that's kind of the conceptual kind of bouncing back between those two. Let's take a look at finding the volume of a cone. I'm going to always start with my formula, pi r squared h, divide by 3. A lot of times students will forget that divide by 3 part. I need the radius and I need the height. So the radius is 2 inches. The height is 4 inches. So we're going to go ahead and substitute. 3.14 for pi, 2 for the radius, 4 for the height. And then I'm going to divide. I'm going to calculate that on top. I'm going to simplify this first, and then I'm going to divide it by 3. And when we go ahead and do that, on the top we get 50.24. Divide that by 3 for a final answer of 16.746. And we're going to round that to the tens place. So 16.7 inches cubed. In our next example, we have a cone, but this time we're given the diameter. So we need the radius. So the radius is going to be half of that, 3.5. Again, let me slide this up. So we have volume equals 3.14 radius squared h divided by 3. 3.14 times 3.5 squared times 9. Divide that whole value by 3. And we go ahead and do that this time. We get 115.395, which when we round to the 10th, 115.4 yards cubed. All right, so here's some practice. Practice is a little different, so why don't you go ahead and stop the video here and try these two out, and then resume when you're ready. We're going to find the volume of a cone, but here we have a description. So I know the radius is 6, and I know the height is 10. So I'm going to start with my formula. 3.14 times the radius, 6 squared, times 10. I'm going to divide that whole answer by 3. That gives me a final answer of 376.8 meters cubed. For our second description, we have the volume with a diameter of 5 and a height of 8.5. So volume equals pi times my radius. Now my radius isn't 5, it's 2.5 because I got to divide this by 2. So 2.5 squared times 8.5. I'm going to divide that whole answer by 3, giving me a result of 55.6 inches cubed. All right, we're going to take a look on the back now. We're going to do what we did with our cylinders. We're going to find a missing value. So find the height of the cone. So now we're looking for the height, not the volume. In fact, we're told what the volume is. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with our formula. Volume equals pi r squared h divided by 3. Now I know what volume is. It's 956. So that's going in for V. So 956 equals 3.14. My radius is 9. I don't know h. Remember, that's what we're looking for. And then I'm going to divide this by 3. Okay, so something we can do to help simplify, there's a couple ways we could answer this. The first thing we could do is, because this is dividing by 3, we could times by 3 on both sides and then begin our solving. Or we can just simplify this value. So if I take my calculator and I do 3.14 times 9 squared, so this would be 81. 81 times 3.14, and I divide that by 3, I'm going to get a value of 84.78. We can do that because it's all multiplication, and that division of 3 will simplify in front of our h. So now I have this. And now it's a nice one-step equation. Draw a line, divide both sides by 84.78. And I have the value of h is, let me grab my calculator, divided by, rounded to the nearest tenth, 11.3. We'll do one more example. A cone has a volume of 196 pi. If we ever see this value with a pi next to it, we're going to just multiply those together to get a volume. So if I do 196 times 3.14, I get 615.44. This is the number we're going to use for the volume. We know the radius, we're looking for the height. Volume equals pi r squared h divided by 3. I'm using that 615 number, 615.44 equals 3.14 times my radius squared times my h, I don't know, divide by 3. That's going to give me 615.44 equals, remember, I'm going to simplify this part here. It gives me 51.29 divide by 51.29. So H equals 12. And it would be 12 inches if we were labeling. If you want to stop now, you can try this practice problem on your own and then resume when you're ready. Volume equals pi r squared h divided by 3. 7,200 equals 3.14 times 15 squared h. Divide that by 3. If I go ahead and it's going to give me 7,200 equals 235.5 h. Now we're going to divide both sides by 235.5. For an answer of a height of about 30.6. And that is finding the volume of a cone or finding a missing value using the volume of a cone. Hope this helps.